transportation, and pay my rent, and so do you. These issues felt like a weight on my shoulders, but I refused to take them without fighting back. I became a community organizer, working for the ACLU and the Nurses Union. I knocked on doors, I spoke with family and friends, and started speaking up about my experiences and helping other people in similar situations realize that we're not alone. That's what makes Senator Sanders the campaign so refreshing and energizing. This campaign is about regular, everyday people uniting our voices to stand up, to fight back, and to bring real change to our lives. And Senator Sanders knows this. Senator Sanders wants Medicare for all. That would have changed my life. Senator Sanders wants free college for all. That would have changed my life. Yes. Senator Sanders wants the minimum wage to be a living wage. That would have saved my life, changed my life. None of this can be accomplished by a single individual, but the strength of our voices united together can make this effort a reality. Now, 6 days from today, New Hampshire goes to the polls. Every single day from now until then, we have multiple volunteer shifts to knock on doors and make phone calls to voters. And this campaign is about making every voter feel their concern and life struggles are heard. And with your help, we can make every voter in the state feel a piece of themselves in Senator Sanders' story and this campaign. Our voices are stronger together. And if every single person here today does a small part, we'll be going into primary day energized and ready to win. So it's my honor now to introduce our next speaker, Bernie 2020 New Hampshire State Co-Chair Representative Reni Cushing.
Morning, I'm Reni Cushing, and I'm a state representative from Hampton, which I know people here are familiar with, particularly in the summer. And I'm also the grandson of a former Derry resident. You go down to 8 Birch Street, and that's where I used to come when I was a little kid. I'm honored to be the chair of Bernie's, one of the co-chairs of Bernie's 2020 campaign here in the state of New Hampshire. And I can just say that Bernie has had an impact upon our state for decades. I remember the example he set when he was mayor of Burlington. And that was a city that was under siege from predatory real estate speculators. The waterfront was about to be hijacked and with condos built on it and turning its back on the people of the city. And Bernie dug in and kept that city a place that worked for everyone who lived there. We've watched Bernie over the decades in Washington stand up for working people, calling out wealth inequality, and setting an example for all of us of how we can help build a beloved community. I know over the decades, every time there's been a struggle for working people in the state of New Hampshire, Bernie has come to help out. He's walked countless picket lines. He's always been there for working people. And I saw that example just a couple weeks ago in the State House, where we took up the issue of a minimum wage. And as someone said to me, as we passed for the first time a $15 an hour minimum wage through the House, that impacts 175,000 people in the state of New Hampshire who right now make less than $15 an hour. And everyone in the State House knows that the reason we were having that conversation is because Bernie Sanders stood up and said, it's time to take care of working people. I serve as chair of the Criminal Justice and Public Safety Committee. And just this past spring, after 185 years, New Hampshire finally decided that it could live without the death penalty, and we repealed capital punishment. And I was proud to be part of that, but I realized that in some ways that passed by one vote. And one of the reasons I think that would help change the debate is 4 years ago when Bernie Sanders and his supporters changed the platform in the Democratic National Committee platform to remove support for capital punishment because we realize that the death penalty is not a criminal justice sanction, it's a human rights violation. Bernie stood there. Just last week in the House, we took up a bill and passed a bill in my committee to decriminalize cannabis, decriminalize marijuana, make it legalized. And Bernie recognizes the damage that's been done by the war on marijuana. And when he's president, the first day in office, he's going to take marijuana off Schedule I drugs, make it legal, and end this senseless war against the weed. I'm not supposed to give all of Bernie's speech for him, and I won't, but a few months ago, down in Brentwood, down the road here, there was an organizing drive at the Rockingham County Nursing Home. People wanted to unionize, and Bernie showed up on the eve of the vote, which turned out to be successful, to kind of stand with these people who are just trying to, get a union contract to work, to enjoy kind of the dignity that you get from a workplace. And Bernie always shows up for that. I was standing with someone who had just gotten off shift, who was really enthusiastic, could not believe that Bernie Sanders was there, that somebody cared enough about someone working in a nursing home to stand with him. And I asked him what his job was. He had just come off a full shift of emptying bedpans. And we've had a lot of debate about health care in this country. Bernie's responsible for making sure that we know that health care is a human right. And we're going to get health care for all under Bernie's leadership. But when we do, we will know that not only will everyone have health care, but the people who are supplying that health care, the people who are emptying the bedpans, will be taken care of and will be part of a new world where they're treated in dignity and respect. So I'm glad you're here. I'm feeling the burn. I want to pass this off now to Krishna Desai, a young leader, a powerful woman. Listen to her.
Good morning, Derry. Got a nice quick start to today's event, right? A little faster than Iowa caucus reporting. Yeah, feeling good about it. So my name is Krishna Desai. I'm here today to tell you a little bit about me and a little bit about why I'm fighting for Senator Bernie Sanders here in New Hampshire. I'm proud to say I've been a vocal, active, and have done my best to stay informed on what's going on in our country, even since before I could vote. A little bit about me. My mom raised her 3 teenage girls by herself after we lost my father suddenly as a kid. And somehow my tight-knit family became even a little more tight-knit. I worked my way through college to supplement my income as a waitress, as a tutor in DC public schools, all while trying to achieve in the classroom and maybe land a job after college. Now, I know I've been lucky. I had an unbelievable support system in which my family put my well-being on their backs so that I could be here today. But the circumstances aren't what they used to be. It's not as easy as going to college, graduating, getting a job, starting a family, and buying a home. I wonder if I'll ever get out of student debt, how old I'll be, if I'll ever be able to buy a home, if a sudden illness will put me out of work and make me bankrupt, or if I'll ever be able to retire in my lifetime. And the reality is, this is not unique to me. This is something that a lot of us in this room are wondering. So today, I'm a student at the Tuck School of Business up at Dartmouth, and I come from private sector work. But I'm going to business school because I believe that business can be done better. It doesn't have to be the way that it is today. And I'm here today because I believe that government can be done better. It's not a novel idea to think that government should work for the people that elect those elected officials. We've seen other Democratic candidates make concessions on Social Security and let other social programs fall by the wayside. We've seen candidates with inconsistent voting records on a woman's right to choose. And we've seen every single candidate accept campaign donations from special interests. How did we get to a place where companies are hitting record high profits and their employees can't make ends meet? And the laws actually support this. People say, oh, let's let the market regulate this. The market will figure it out. Is that true? I have to ask you, has the market been working for everyday hardworking Americans? No. And on the other hand, we've seen Senator Sanders let the American people fund his campaign, stand up to Congress on both sides of the aisle when the time calls for it, and fight for what everyday Americans actually need. So I'm committed to being and fighting for the change I want to see in this country, and there's no one I trust more than Senator Sanders. He's going to stand up for hardworking people like you and me, our families, especially behind closed doors when the pressure is on. So Bernie's consistency is remarkable. We know that we've never seen anything like it in American history, and the history books confirm that. And we have an opportunity to elect someone who's not afraid to rewrite the rules. We need to come out stronger than we ever have before, especially coming out of Iowa, to make sure we show the rest of the country how much New Hampshire believes in Bernie. I am energized and I am excited for the primary on Tuesday and to take this fight all the way to Milwaukee and then all the way to the White House in November. So today, thank you for your time. I have the honor of introducing Dr. Jane Sanders. Please give her a big round of applause. Thank you.
Hi, it's great to be here in New Hampshire. Boy, we just went out for a walk and it was absolutely beautiful. I'm so glad to be here to introduce my husband, Bernie Sanders. I wanted to tell you a little bit about him and me before I bring him out. We met back in 1981 when he was running for mayor and I was a community organizer. And our neighborhood groups organized a debate. And I heard him speak and I felt that he spoke directly to me, that he seemed to understand what I was feeling, the struggles as a mother of three, going through in terms of housing and healthcare and education costs. But beyond that, I felt that he embodied everything that I ever believed in. And 40 years later, I still do. So I'm very lucky and I feel incredibly proud to be at his side, especially when I see him speak to groups and see people respond in the same fashion, to have it be something that they really understand, that they have a connection with him. I think it's important to note that he is everything that candidates usually say they are, as opposed to maybe the current occupant of the presidency. He's honest, he's consistent in his thoughts and his values and his principles. And I think especially with the current occupant in the White House, that voters know that and recognize and really think about the value of that. We want a president who has a record not only of consistency, but of standing up for what he believes in, and then fulfilling those promises. And that's who Bernie is. That's who Bernie always has been, and that's who he always will be. And I know New Hampshire, more than any other early state, and of course you're the first primary in the nation, knows him. And that's, I think, a huge advantage for us, because I think that we understand that he has a moral clarity that he has demonstrated throughout his lifetime. And that's tremendously important right now, as we think that Donald Trump is the most dangerous president in modern history. We need a nominee who can defeat him, and that is Bernie Sanders. Thank you. The best way to defeat lies and bigotry and hate is with truth and love and compassion. And Bernie is a candidate who Trump will not be able to vilify as inauthentic or hypocritical, and that's a huge advantage for us, again, and for the voters. Transformational change will take place if we stand together united by a common purpose, a coherent vision, and a robust policy framework. And with President Donald Trump, you might have that, but it's not really coherent. It's a little bit different, I think, than the values and principles that we share here today. As president, I think Bernie is the president that we need, the kind who will not only make promises, but make change, the kind who will not only raise hopes, but fulfill them, and the kind who will not only praise peace, but attain it. So if we stand together, we're on the verge of a tremendous victory that will transform this country. Let's do it together. Thank you. Thank you. Now it is my distinct honor and privilege to introduce you to my best friend, my husband, and Vermont Senator and the next President of the United States, Bernie Sanders.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
We love you, Bernie.
Love you too. Let me thank Reni Cushing. Where's Reni? Reni, thanks so much for the great work you do in the legislature and for your strong support. And Krishna, where's Krishna? Thank you so much. And certainly last but not least, let me thank my soulmate of the last 40 years, my wife, Jane Sanders. As some of you may know, they are still counting votes in Iowa. I assume that one of these years that vote count will be completed. But as of 70% of the count, we are winning the popular vote, and we thank the people of Iowa. And in Iowa they have a complicated system, and there's a realignment vote. We're winning that one as well, and I think we're going to have an equal number of delegates from Iowa going to the national convention. So I want to thank all of our volunteers in Iowa who have worked so very, very hard. Now, as I think many of you know, today is a kind of serious and solemn day for the country. And the reason I'm wearing a tie is I'm going to be on a plane in a few minutes, going to Washington, D.C., to vote for the impeachment of President Trump. And this is serious business, and it's something that I have taken seriously. You know, frankly, I would have preferred to be campaigning in New Hampshire and Iowa during the period, but an impeachment is a rarity. It is of enormous consequence, and it's something that I have taken seriously, as other senatorial candidates have done as well. And what this is about, and everybody should know this, an impeachment is not about policy. I happen to disagree with Donald Trump on almost everything, but this impeachment vote is not about a difference in policy. This is about abuse of power. This is about a president who withheld, in my view, almost $400 million of military aid to Ukraine, a country at war with Russia, in order to extract out of them an investigation into one of his political opponents. And then when that truth became public, Trump undertook a massive cover-up of what he was doing. And when the U.S. Congress, under its constitutional responsibility, subpoenaed members of his administration, demanded documents, he refused to provide that information. And that is an obstruction of the work of Congress. Now, what are the implications of this? Why is this so significant? What is significant is if Trump is able to get away with it, and I fear very much that he will, because we don't have enough Republicans in the Senate who have the courage to do what many of them know is right. If Trump gets away with this, I want you to appreciate the precedent that is being established. It means that future presidents can say to a governor, hey, I got some infrastructure money for you, but you're not going to get your fair share unless I get your endorsement. Or go to China and say, hey, China, I need some help in my coming election. See what kind of dirt you can dig up on my opponent, and we'll give you a better trade agreement. That's called abuse of power. That's using the power of the presidency for your own, in this case, personal and political benefit. That is unconstitutional, and that should not be allowed. Now, the other issue, the issue of obstruction of Congress, is a big deal as well. You know, one of the things in the last couple of weeks, sitting in the Senate, listening to all of the discussion from the very able attorneys from the House and the Senate, is you learn a little bit about constitutional law. I'm not a lawyer, so it was interesting hearing all this, and you really are impressed about the Constitution that the founders of this country wrote over 200 years ago. It's really quite an amazing document, which, given all of the changes in the world, has really held up quite well. And what the founders were about was saying, you know, we, way back then, during the Revolutionary War, we fought against tyranny, we fought against autocracy, and we want to create a government where nobody has all the power. That's what we fought against. Now, God knows that the democracy they created was not perfect. Women couldn't vote. We had slavery and so forth and so on. But they were very cognizant of trying to prevent any entity, president, from having too much power. And they created this division of power in the Constitution, in the court system, in the presidency. And when Trump says to the Congress, I am sorry, I am not going to give you the information that you want, what you are talking about is a president who thinks he is above the law. Doesn't matter to me what Congress wants. I'm the president. I can do anything I want. You want to investigate me? You want information? Sorry, you're not getting it. I am the president, and I will do what I want. And I think now about how all of the unbelievably brave men and women from New Hampshire, from Vermont, all over this country who fought to defend democracy, one person, one vote, the separation of powers, our Constitution. In fact, every member of the Congress and the president swears an oath of allegiance to the Constitution. Well, you're not respecting the Constitution when you think you are above the law. And that is what the vote today is about. So I'm going to be in Washington in a few hours. I will vote to impeach this president, who I believe is the most dangerous president in the history of this country. But it is not just the impeachment issue. We are dealing with the president, and honestly, it gives me no pleasure to tell you this, you know, but we are dealing with the president who is a pathological liar. And I honestly believe that he probably doesn't know the difference between the truth and lies. The media has documented thousands and thousands of lies that he has told every single day. He lies. We have a president who is running a corrupt administration. We have a president who is a racist, who is a sexist, who is a homophobe, who is a xenophobe, and who is a religious bigot. We have a president, and this is something, again, that goes beyond policy issues. One believes, historically it has been the case, whether you're a conservative president, you're a moderate president, whatever you may be, I think everybody who has assumed the mantle of the presidency understands that the job is to bring people together. We are all Americans. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care where your dad came from. I don't care about your sexual orientation. We are Americans. How do we work together to go forward to improve the lives of the American people? All right? But today we have a president who very intentionally, for cheap political gain, is trying to divide us up based on the color of our skin. Remember, before he became president, he was the leader of the so-called Birther movement, trying to delegitimize the first African-American president we've ever had. He is trying to divide us up by where we come from, his constant attacks on the undocumented, and so forth and so on. So what we are going to do, and what we are doing in this campaign, and what we will do in the White House, is exactly the opposite of what Trump is doing. He's trying to divide us up. We're going to bring our people together, black and white and Latino, Native American, Asian American, gay and straight. We're going to end the divisiveness in this country, and we're going to bring people together around an agenda that finally works for working people, not just wealthy campaign contributors and the 1%. You know, people talk, I'm often asked by the media, well, how are you going to bring people together? Well, I will tell you how, because despite what some may think, there is a lot more commonality of views in this country than some perceive. Whether you are a conservative Republican or a progressive Democrat or an independent, you know that we have a corrupt political system today in which billionaires are able to buy elections. The American people don't like that. They want it to change. Here in New England, probably in this very room, you have town meetings and people argue about how much you're going to spend on the schools or on the roads. And then people raise their hand. One person, one vote is what American democracy is supposed to be about, and that's what we are going to fight for. And the American people also understand, again, irregardless of one's political views, that there is something immoral and bad for our economy when so few people own so much wealth and have so much income compared to the general population. Right now, we have more income and wealth inequality in America today than we have had in the last 100 years. Today in America, you got 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. You got that? 3 people, 160 million people. Today in America, you got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 92%, while 500,000 Americans are homeless tonight, including 30,000 veterans. Today in America, while in New Hampshire and Vermont, we got people who are working 2 or 3 jobs to take care of their families, 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%. And yet half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. Many of you know what it's like. And that means you worry if the car breaks down because you can't afford to get the car fixed and get to work and get your income. You know what it's like when you don't have any money and you get sick, or your kid gets sick and you can't afford to take the kid to the doctor's office. Half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck. The top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. Our administration will tackle the issue of income and wealth inequality and create an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the people on top. You know, when we talk about the real issues facing the American people, I think we all know what they are. We all know what they are. You got so many people struggling economically. So what should we do as a government? For a start, we say that anyone who works 40 hours a week in America does not live in poverty. We raise that federal minimum wage to $15 an hour. Is $15 an hour going to get you rich? Certainly not. But it will give a little bit more economic security to many, many millions of people. And I'm proud that over the last 4 years, we made some progress in that area. It means that in America, when we talk about fairness, women should not make 80 cents on the dollar compared to men. Equal pay for equal work. Today in America, there are millions of workers who want to join unions because they can get better wages and working conditions. We're going to make it easier for workers to join unions, not harder. And again, what this campaign is about is asking people to think outside of the box, outside of what you see on television or what you hear in the Congress. So ask yourself a simple question. It's the wealthiest country in the history of the world. Every psychologist in the world will tell you that 0 through 4 are the most important years of human development, intellectually and emotionally, right? Everybody knows that. If we're the wealthiest country in the history of the world, why do we have a dysfunctional child care system where working families cannot find good quality, affordable child care? Why is that? Why are we prepared to give tax breaks to billionaires but tell working class families all over this country you can't find good quality care for your kids? Under our administration, we're going to change the priorities of the government. We will have universal, high quality child care in this country. We are going to invest in public education so that regardless of your zip code, regardless of the local property tax situation, we know in wealthier communities they can raise more money for their schools. We're going to significantly increase funding for Title I low-income schools so that every kid in this country gets a quality education. And we believe that in the year 2020, in a competitive global economy with a changing technology, that every young person, every person in this country, regardless of their income, should be able to get a higher education, either college or trade school, which is why we will make public colleges and universities tuition free. And when we change the priorities and the value systems of what goes on in Washington, what we say is instead of doing what Trump did a couple of years ago, giving $1 trillion in tax breaks to large, profitable corporations and the 1%, what we will do is cancel all student debt in America. And we do that through a modest tax on Wall Street speculation. Some of you may remember that 11 years ago, Congress bailed out the crooks on Wall Street who destroyed our economy. Well, if we could bail them out, then Wall Street can help the working families of this country today. It's another issue that I have talked about a lot. I want to talk about it today. Very fundamental issue. To me, it's been part of my life since I've been involved in politics. And I think it is probably the issue that the American people hold dearest to their hearts right now and are concerned about. And that is, as a nation, we have finally got to do what every other major country on earth is doing. And that is to say loudly and clearly that health care is a human right, not a privilege. And here is the irony. It's not a new idea that I invented. This is an idea that presidents from Teddy Roosevelt at the beginning of the 20th century have been talking about. FDR talked about it. Harry Truman talked about it. JFK talked about it. Lyndon Johnson talked about it. Richard Nixon talked about it. Obama talked about it. Carter talked about it. The time has come where after 100 years of talk, we have got to summon the courage to take on the insurance companies and the drug companies and finally pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. What does that mean? What does that mean? So let me tell you exactly what it means, because you're going to hear a lot of lies and misinformation about Medicare for all, because last year, while 87 million Americans have no insurance or are underinsured, while 30,000 of us died last year because they didn't get to the doctor on time, while we pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs because of the greed and corruption of the pharmaceutical industry. And this is totally amazing. And I want you all to think about it when you hear people on the TV telling you how great our healthcare system is. Heard it from Trump last night, how great our healthcare system. 500,000 people went bankrupt last year because of medically related debt. Can you imagine the obscenity, the grossness of somebody being diagnosed with cancer, fighting for their lives, having to worry about whether their family will experience financial ruin? In America, when you get sick, you should not go bankrupt. So what I'm proposing, I'm criticized every day. It's such a radical idea, going to disrupt the entire universe. What are we talking about? We are talking about expanding the most popular health insurance program in America right now, called Medicare. That's all, over a 4-year period. Now, Medicare is a strong program. Some of you in this room are on Medicare, but it is far from perfect. I want to make it better, and I want to expand it to all. What does that mean? It means Medicare should cover dental care. It means Medicare should cover hearing aids. Eyeglasses are pretty expensive. Medicare should cover eyeglasses. And I'll tell you what else Medicare should cover and will cover under a Medicare for All program. And that is home health care, so that seniors and people with disabilities can stay in their homes if they choose, rather than be forced into a nursing home. People say, Medicare for All is so expensive. Bernie, how are you going to pay for it? And I will tell you. Before I tell you how I'm going to pay for it, let's talk for a moment about how we are paying for health care right now. We're paying for health care right now in terms of premiums that you and your employers are paying. That's how you paid for it. I remember a few months ago, I talked to a woman here in, I think it was Manchester. And she was, I would say, in her late 50s. She may have had some medical issues. She was paying over $1,500 a month in premiums, okay? Others are paying less. But for that average family in the middle of our economy, that family makes $60,000 a year. That family is paying $12,000 a year in health care. So right now we pay for it through premiums. And if I asked you, some of you would be telling me you're paying $1,000 a month, $500, whatever it may be. We pay for it through co-payments, right? You go walking into the doctor's office, what's it cost you, an extra $50, $100? And millions of people can't afford that $50 or $100, so they don't go to the doctor when they should. We're paying for it through one of the most absurd concepts ever invented by a human being, called deductibles. Now, we take for granted deductibles. Think about it. It is an insane concept. You're spending a fortune on health insurance. You think you should be able to go to the doctor when you want. No, you can't. Because in this room, there are people. Will you tell me, what kind of deductibles do people have in this room? How much? 6,000. 2,500. How much? 6, 8. I'm sorry, 7? Okay. What that means is you're paying a pretty penny for health insurance, but before you can walk into the doctor's office, you got to come up with 5, 6, 7,000, sometimes 10,000, sometimes more than that. We are going to eliminate all premiums under Medicare for all co-payments under Medicare for all deductibles under Medicare for all out-of-pocket expenses out of Medicare for all. And because, and I see my friends from AARP here, we're a little bit worried about the cost of medicine, right? Because we're going to take on the greed and the corruption of the pharmaceutical industry. Who in some cases, and I want you all to hear this because this is not just the drug companies, this is political corruption. There are people in this country who are paying 10 times more for insulin and for other prescription drugs than the Canadians and the Europeans are paying. 10 times more. You know why? Because the pharmaceutical industry has spent billions of dollars in the last 20 years buying and selling politicians through lobbying and campaign contributions. So today, for those of you who are in the drug companies are listening, your days of greed are coming to an end. And your days of corruption. It's not just greed. Greed is not a new phenomenon. But this is actual corruption. And I want to give you one example, which I know has hit this state very hard. Vermont has suffered a lot, as has the rest of the country, in terms of opioid addiction and death. Your state has suffered more than almost any other state. And I want you all to know, when we talk about the pharmaceutical industry, in this case, opioid manufacturers, there's a massive lawsuit being waged right now by attorneys general all over this country. What they are saying, hear this, is that the opioid manufacturers knew that the product that they were selling, the opiates that they were selling, were causing addiction and death. And when they learned about it, you know what they did? They hired more salesmen to sell more product. That is not only corruption, that is criminal activity. We will address that criminal activity. So what Medicare for All is about is, over a 4-year period, expanding Medicare to cover benefits that I mentioned, and then in the first year lowering the age of eligibility from 65 down to 55 in the first year. Millions of people 60 years of age would give their right arm to be on Medicare today. Well, we're going to lower that age to 55, next year 45, next year 35, fourth year everybody is in. And the message out there, the simple message that is out there, is that the function of a rational and humane healthcare system is to guarantee healthcare to all of our people, not to make drug companies and insurance companies enormous profits. That's what we're going to do. There's another issue out there that I wish I didn't have to discuss with you. I wish I could push it underneath the rug and ignore it, but you can't. Not for our kids' sake or future generations. Donald Trump tells you that climate change is a hoax. What the scientific community tells you is that climate change is an existential threat to this country and the entire planet. The scientists are right. Trump is wrong. So if you're ready for a radical idea, here it is. As President of the United States, I will listen to the scientists, not right-wing extremists. And what is scary, and this is scary, in terms of what the scientists are telling us, is not that climate change is real. They've known that for years. Not that it is already causing a lot of damage. Not that it's caused by human activity. They've known that for years. What they are now telling us is they have underestimated the speed and severity in which climate change is ravaging this planet. That's what they're telling us. They're telling us that the polar ice caps are melting at a faster rate. The oceans are warming. Sea levels are rising much faster than they had anticipated. That drought is more severe than they had anticipated. You want to know about drought? You want to know about heat waves? Take a look at what is happening in Australia today. And if you think that climate change is not real and you want to ignore climate change, look at what's happening in Australia, and in the next 50, 100 years, understand that that will happen all over the world. The scientists are also telling us that when the weather warms up, bacteria will spread because it thrives on the heat. The United Nations is telling us that as a result of climate change, there will be hundreds of millions of climate refugees people who can no longer live in their communities because there's no clean water, no land to grow their crops. And when millions of people migrate, that creates war and international tension. What exacerbates this problem, makes it even more complicated than it is this is not just an American issue. We could do everything right tomorrow and not solve the global problem. So what I will do as president is not ignore the issue. I will reach out to the people all over the world, China, Russia, India, Pakistan, Brazil, Africa, all over the world, and say, on this issue, we are in it together. We are bound together on this issue. And maybe, just maybe, instead of spending as a world $1.8 trillion on weapons of destruction designed to go to war and kill each other, maybe we should pool our resources against our common enemy, which is climate change. But the bottom line here is that we have a moral responsibility, and I speak as the father of 4 and the grandfather of 7 beautiful kids, 3 of whom live here in New Hampshire, that we have a moral responsibility to make sure that the planet we leave future generations is a planet that is healthy and is habitable. And our message today to the fossil fuel industry is that your short-term profits, of which there are many, many billions, are not more important than the future of this planet. We will take on the fossil fuel industry. I am proud to have introduced the most comprehensive climate change proposal ever introduced by a presidential candidate. It is based on the principles of the Green New Deal, where we're going to create up to 20 million good-paying jobs, good-paying union jobs, as we transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. That's what we have got to do. There's not an option here. If we love our kids, that is the direction, in my view, that we've got to go. And we talk about an agenda that works for all and that reflects the principles of what this country is about. We have got to deal with a broken and racist criminal justice system. That's just the fact. We cannot continue to have more people in jail than any other country on earth. And that means basically that we have to invest in our young people. Make sure they have good jobs when they leave school. Make sure that they do not drop out of school. Make sure that they have a proper education so they can do well in a changing economy. We invest in our young people rather than investing in more jails and incarceration. Now, Donald Trump every day is trying to demonize the undocumented. That's what he does. As the son of an immigrant myself, my father came to this country at the age of 17 from Poland, grew up in poverty, had no education, very little education, came to this country not speaking a word of English. I am mindful of how immigrants in this country are feeling. I experienced the immigrant situation myself as the son of an immigrant. So instead of demonizing undocumented people, we are going to pass something that is long overdue, and that is comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. There's an issue that, regardless of your political views, are on the minds of many Americans and children. And that is the level of gun violence in this country and the horror we all experience when we turn on the TV and we learn about another mass shooting someplace. I remember being here in New Hampshire a number of months ago, before Christmas, and a woman stood up and she said, "Bernie, what am I supposed to tell my 11-year-old daughter who wants me to get her a bulletproof backpack for Christmas. Right? This is what kids, I was in Iowa, this kid 6'2", looked like a football player to me, says, kids in my school are really worried about some terrible thing happening. So it's not just the mass shootings that we see. It is not only the 40,000 people who are killed every year as a result of guns. It is the fear that so many of our young people and people in general are now experiencing. So my pledge to you in terms of gun safety is that our legislation will be written by the American people, not the NRA. And that means that we will have universal background checks. We will end the gun show loophole. We'll end the straw man provision. And what we will also do is what a majority of the American people now want us to do: end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. You know, last night, Trump talks about deregulation and Republicans talk about getting government off the backs of the people and small government. So I want to say to all of those hypocrites who talk about getting the government off the backs of the American people, if that is what you truly believe, then understand that it is women in this country who have the right to control their own bodies, not the government. So let me wrap it up by just saying this, and we'll open it up to some questions, is what our campaign is about and what our administration will be about is, number one, we have got to defeat Trump. Trump is the most dangerous president in the modern history of our country. And I think I can speak for my friends who are running in the Democratic primary and tell you that no matter who wins the nomination, I certainly hope it will be me, that we will be united around the winner and doing everything that we can to make sure that Trump is defeated. And let me just for a second tell you why I think we are the strongest campaign to defeat Trump. And that is to defeat Trump, who will be a very formidable opponent for a number of reasons. We are going to have in November the largest voter turnout in the history of this country by far. And I believe that kind of old-fashioned status quo politics is not going to generate the kind of energy and excitement we need to bring working class people into the political process, to bring young people into the political process, to grow the base. We are running a campaign which has the largest grassroots volunteer network, maybe, not sure, in the history of this country. But we have all over this country, as we speak, right here in New Hampshire, we have knocked on tens and tens and tens of thousands of doors, and I want to thank the volunteers who have been doing that door knocking. We have made probably hundreds of thousands of phone calls, probably bothering each and every one of you. But that's what our type of grassroots campaign is about, and it's not only here. We're doing it in California, we're doing it in Nevada, we're doing it in South Carolina, we're doing it all over the country right now. That, to my mind, is the kind of campaign that we need to defeat Trump, and I think our campaign is best suited to do this. But beating Trump is not the only reason that I am running for president. I believe that it is absolutely imperative that we transform our country and that we create a government that finally pays attention and works for the needs of ordinary Americans rather than wealthy campaign contributors. And that means, and this is hard stuff, and I want to be honest with you, as all of you know, the message of our campaign is us, not me. Now, why is that? It's a good bumper sticker, I admit. But when you think about it, it's actually a very profound statement. And it's profound in two ways. It says that as a nation, we must come together and care about each other. All right? That I need you to worry about my family, and as a citizen, I will worry about your family, that as Americans, we are in this together. All right? And the second part of us, not me, is a profound political statement, which will not be seen on television. Okay? And that is the understanding of the nature of the power structure in America. Okay? And what that means is what I know and what many of you know, is real power in this country rests with Wall Street. We have a half a dozen banks that have assets of over $10 trillion. It rests with the insurance companies and the drug companies and the fossil fuel industry and the military industrial complex. Many of us don't like endless wars. We don't like seeing young Americans getting killed in wars, spending trillions of dollars in wars. Military industrial complex is doing just fine. All right? Then you got a prison industrial complex. You got a whole lot of powerful forces who are making huge amounts of profits by maintaining the status quo. What our administration is about is taking on those enormously powerful special interests and creating policies that work for working families, not the CEOs of large corporations. Which takes us to next Tuesday. And that is the first primary in the nation, right here in New Hampshire. Very, very important primary. And what I'm here today is to ask not only for your support, I'm here to urge you to help us have a very large voter turnout. I'm asking you to help us bring your friends and family and coworkers to vote as well. If we win here in New Hampshire, I think we've got a good shot at it. It will have a profound impact on future primaries and caucuses. So next Tuesday, please come out and vote. Please give us your support. Let's have the largest voter turnout in New Hampshire primary history. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to be on a plane soon. Do we have a few, Shannon? We got a few mics here? Where do we have mics? All right, there's one mic. On this side, we have another mic. All right, mic one, mic two. Okay. Anybody has any questions? Okay, ma'am, right here. Grab the mic. It's coming.
Hi, Senator Sanders. My name is Sarah. I'm Jewish, and I care a lot about Palestinian and Israeli human rights. And so last week, I was disgusted and horrified, as I'm sure you were too, by the release of Trump's so-called peace plan.
Yes.
Because it promises to expand and extend permanent occupation and annexation in Israel-Palestine.
Yes.
AIPAC rushed to embrace the plan, and their annual policy conference is coming up in a month. And we know that what they do there, as they do every year, is use the opportunity to shore up support for unconditional military aid in the form of a blank check to fund occupation. And they do that by forming alliances with Islamophobes and anti-Semites and white supremacists. And that doesn't represent my values, so I'm not going to the conference. You made it very clear last year that it doesn't represent your values either, and so you weren't going last year. You're not going this year, right?
Well, if I do go, I don't think I am. I don't think it's going to be on my schedule. But, I have no objection to going. But the question is, what does I say when I get there? That's the point. And what I will say is something what I have said for years. And I speak as somebody who's Jewish. And that is, we need a foreign policy in this country. We need a Mideast policy, which absolutely protects the integrity and the independence and safety of Israel, but also understands that the Palestinian people have needs and they have got to be treated with respect and dignity. And that is not the case right now. So that is my view. We will treat all people with respect and dignity. Okay, other questions? Okay, I see a hand way in the back. Gentleman in the, yeah. Why don't you wait for the mic there?
In 1974, Congress passed...
Oh, hold the mic.
Oh, thank you. In 1974, I think Congress passed the Impound Act because Richard M. Nixon was not distributing funds appropriately, kind of pocket veto of the funds. Why is that not being mentioned by the Democrats in the context of this impeachment? In other words, what Trump did may have been justified in some people's mind, but that doesn't stay to the legality, and that was an illegal act based on that congressional act.
Well, I mean, I think, as I mentioned earlier, one of the fears, if Trump is not impeached, if the Republicans say, hey, what he did was okay, what it sets the standard for Trump to do again and again, and for future presidents to say, doesn't matter what the law is, hey, New Hampshire, you want a certain amount of road money, infrastructure money? Hey, Governor, you better come to my office and tell the world what a great president I am. You're not getting your fair share. Your money's going to Tennessee instead. That's the danger there. That's what abuse of power is about. That is what a president who is above the law is about. Obviously, as you indicate, Congress develops a formula, and I and your senators work very hard to make sure that Vermont, New Hampshire, states get their fair share. We argue about it, believe me, urban versus rural and so forth and so on. But at the end of the day, when you got that, that type of aid has got to be fairly distributed, not distributed on the political whims of the president. He gets away with this, you're going to see more and more of that. Okay, yes, gentleman right here, yes.
How you doing? How you doing, Senator Sanders?
Good.
Good. I just wanted to ask what the campaign, or what we can do. We see that Tom Perez and the DNC has stacked the DNC Rules Committee with people that aren't necessarily pro-Bernie Sanders, and as followers, we're frightened that we might have a repeat of 2016. Wondering what you could tell us. Just, I know we're going to vote en masse and whatnot, but...
Yeah. What we can do right now is to make sure we have the largest voter turnout in the history of New Hampshire. That's the most important thing we do. The truth is that the nominee will have enormous power over those committees, okay? And when I am the nominee, we will make sure that the people who will be chairs of those committees will be people who reflect the needs of the American people. Okay, I see a question right here. This gentleman, yeah. Wait for the mic.
I'm a self-employed vegetable farmer, as 90% of American farmers. Will you please address the needs of the self-employed? Because when the Reagan administration blew the bomb on the organized labor, they raised the self-employment tax from 8.1 to 15.3%. and blew us out of the water, and it kills low and middle income
Absolutely.
earners. Please address the self-employed and use that word. There are 25 million of us, and there's 110,000 in New Hampshire, and we need to hear our name. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're right. That is a very, I wanted to mention this. You talk about self-employed now paying, what, 15% of their income?
15.3.
Right.
No deduction.
That's right. Meanwhile, while that goes on, self-employed are paying an outrageous percentage of, in some cases, limited income. Under Trump, we have moved to a situation where billionaires in America have a lower effective tax rate than you do, than the working class and middle class of this country. So what we need is a tax system, especially at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, where under Trump, the billionaire class has seen hundreds of billions of dollars increase in their wealth. We need to say to the wealthy and to the large corporations, yes, you will start paying your fair share of taxes. Okay. Yeah, gentleman right here up front.
Hi, Senator. I think that you are probably the only candidate that can really address income inequality and bring upward mobility to most of the vulnerable people in America. However, after I graduate this May, I will be working as an analyst at one of America's largest health insurers, which creates an inner conflict for me to vote for you, but also a fear of being unemployed after graduation because there's no need for my job anymore. So what kind of reassurance can you provide to me and the hundreds of thousands of other people who work for private insurers that there is still a need for our careers after single-payer health care?
Okay. It's a fair question and a good question. What's your name? Alex. Okay. Look, this issue in your question is not a dissimilar question than I hear from people who work in the fossil fuel industry. Does anybody think that Alex is an enemy of mine, that I don't want him the best? Of course we want him the best. So do we want workers in coal mines and on oil rigs. So what we have done is two things. In terms of climate change, we have got to move away from fossil fuel. And we build into our climate change proposal a unprecedented level of what we call a just transition period. People get 5 years of pay, and they get benefits, and they get educational opportunities. And we're doing the same for people who work in the healthcare industry. The truth is that the reason we pay, Alex, as you probably know, twice as much per person for healthcare as do the people of any other country is right now we have a Byzantine, complicated system of thousands of different health insurance plans, all right? So you got a $5,000 deductible, you have a $10,000. You're in this network, you're in that network. Your copayment is this, your copayment is that, you cover the prescription drugs, you don't get prescription drugs. It is an insanely complicated system, which, by the way, is driving doctors and nurses crazy, which is why the American College of Physicians, 158,000, have endorsed Medicare for all. All right? So, to answer your question, people who work in the healthcare industry, the workers are not our enemy. We will have a very just, unprecedented transition program to make sure that those people are made whole. And the other point that I would make is once we open the doors of healthcare to the 87 million who are uninsured and underinsured, we will be creating a lot more jobs than we are losing. Okay? Okay, thank you, Alex. Oh, you do? Okay, let's get somebody from the balcony. A woman right there in the blue sweater.
Hi, Mr. Sanders. My name's Christine, and I'm here because you seem like one of the most authentic candidates running right now. So I wanted to hear what you had to say and how authentic you really are. And by the way, nobody believes for a minute that you told Elizabeth Warren that a woman can't make it for president. So you've been very consistent and authentic. And since I've been 18, I voted half in every presidential election, and half I voted Republican, and half I voted Democrat. So I'm very interested in what you're doing for the poor. That's where I want to know.
For the what?
For the poor. I'm interested in what. So one issue that you have not been consistent on is open borders. When you first ran, you said it was a Koch brothers scheme and seemed to recognize that low-wage workers being dumped into the country does not help low-wage workers. My family's 134% of the poverty level. So I worked at a restaurant in New Hampshire this summer, and the dishwashers were starting at $14 an hour, teenagers. Can you please explain why you changed on that issue? Did you have to change because donors seem to want the low-wage workers?
No. Okay. First thought. What I believe in, absolutely, is I don't believe in open borders. If open borders mean anybody can come from any place in the world, there's no country in the history of the world, I think, that has ever had that view. That is not my view. But my view is that we have 11 million undocumented here. Many of those workers, by the way, are being exploited right now. You know, Trump wants to throw everybody out of the country. If he threw people out of the country, the price of food in this country would skyrocket. Who do you think is picking the crops and planting all over this country? Okay. So what we need to do, and I think what the American people want us to do, is rather than demonize the undocumented, What they want is a sensible immigration policy, which includes the following. Right now, you got 1.8 million young people in this country who came to this country at the age of 2, 3, 5. Trump took away their legal status. As president, I would restore the legal protection for the 1.8 million in the DACA program. Number two, in my view, what the United States of America is not about is having federal agents seize little babies from the arms of their mothers. That's not what this country is about. And we're going to end that. Nor is it throwing children. So we need to hire hundreds of administrative judges at the border so that we could deal with asylum issues in a rational and expeditious way. And thirdly, as I mentioned, we need to move toward comprehensive immigration reform and a path toward citizenship. Okay, maybe a couple of more questions. Okay, see a gentleman over there at the end there. Yeah.
So my name is Richard, and Mr. Sanders, you mentioned one person, one vote during your speech. I was wondering along those lines how you feel about removing the Electoral College such that one person, one vote is what occurs in the general election.
Look, I think, thank you for the question. If we believe in one person, one vote, if we believe in democracy, if we believe that a majority or a plurality rules, right? I get more votes than you, I win. You get more votes than me, you win. Then it is hard to defend a system in which we have a president of the United States who received 3 million votes less than his opponent. All right? Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes than Donald Trump. Donald Trump is president of the United States because he did well in states like Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida, and won those states. All right? So if we believe in majority rule, I think we have to rethink the whole concept of the Electoral College. And let me add to your point, which is maybe the most important point. Just from a practical political point of view, everybody who knows anything about politics understands that the presidential election will come down to 10, 15, 16 so-called battleground states. Okay? So you will have candidates coming to New Hampshire, which is a battleground state, probably not coming to Vermont, which is not a battleground state, not going to California, not going to New York, not going to Wyoming, not going to North Dakota or South Dakota, which are Republican states. Does not make a lot of states. You got 50 states in this country. You got 320 million people. Each state has their own needs, and a president has got to address the needs of New Hampshire, of California, of Mississippi, of South Dakota, of North Dakota. But in many ways, those states are excluded. The assumption is South Dakota is going to vote Republican, Wyoming is going to vote the Republican, Vermont and New York will vote Democratic. What do we have to worry about those states? That is unfair to a majority of the people of this country. So I think you want a presidential campaign, and you want the presidential candidates to be talking about the issues that impact all of the people of this country, not just 16 states. So your point is well taken. Okay, ma'am, right here. We got a woman right up front.
My name's Sharon, and I'm worried about the deficit that we're incurring right now, what you might be able to do for that.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. We have a very significant national deficit. We have I think it's going to be $1 trillion this year alone, added to the $20+ trillion national debt that we have. It is a serious problem. Trump has made it worse by giving massive tax breaks to people who don't need it and greatly expanding military spending. So one of the things that I think we should be looking at when we talk about the deficit, as well as the needs of the American people, is having a fair and progressive tax system, which says to billionaires and large corporations that they have got to start paying their fair share of taxes, all right? It is hard for me to defend a system, a tax system, which allows large corporations like Amazon and many others last year. Do you know how much Amazon paid in taxes last year? They paid not a penny. And that's hard to defend that. That's Trump's tax plan, and that's absurd. That's the power of big money. Second of all, we got to look at where we can save money. I have a problem when we are now spending more on the military than the next 10 nations combined. Okay? I think we need a strong defense. We need to keep America safe. We do not have to spend as much money as Trump is proposing. Give you another example. We are now providing hundreds of billions of dollars over a period of years in tax breaks and subsidies for the fossil fuel industry, who are producing a product that is destroying this planet. We give tax breaks to the drug companies who are ripping us off. So I think we need a good tax system. I think we have to take a hard look at our spending. I think there's a lot of waste out there. There's a lot of areas that we're spending money that we should not be spending money. Okay, last question. Okay, woman right there. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Hi, Senator Sanders. I'm a college student. I go to Middlebury in Vermont, actually. And I think I can speak for most college students when I say that climate change is always on my mind. I think about it every day. And we all know that climate change is an issue that's going to last beyond the 4 or 8 years of a presidency. So my question for you is how you plan to make policies about climate change that will last beyond the scope of your presidency.
Well, you're absolutely right. This issue of climate change, and I don't use the word existential too often, but if you look at what some of the scientists are writing about and studying, is if we do not get our act together in an unprecedented and aggressive and bold way, what this planet will look like when you have kids and grandchildren will be an increasingly unhealthy, uninhabitable planet. So you should be worried. And what we have got to do, and I know, I get attacked for these things, and I understand it. I agree with you. I think that this is a huge, huge problem, and I think it is totally irresponsible. I can come to you and say, all right, we're going to put more money into solar panels here in New Hampshire, and we're going to do a little bit of this, and we'll do a little bit more for public transportation. That's not going to solve the problem. So what we need to do is set up a long-term structure for this country, but not just this country, for the entire world. You follow me? We can do all the right things tomorrow, and if China and Russia and India and Pakistan and Brazil and other countries around the world are not doing the right thing, this planet will be in very deep trouble. So to answer your question, dealing with climate change will certainly be it has to be one of my priorities, and I will do my best to make it a top priority for countries all over the world. What does it mean? It means moving away from fossil fuel as quickly as possible to energy efficiency and sustainable energies like wind, solar, geothermal, putting a lot of money into research and development to figure out how we can create more sustainability, transforming our transportation system, making major changes in agriculture in America, and do this as a planet, not just the nation. But I don't think we have an option on this one. And the good news, if there's any good news with regard to climate change, is that we can create, as we make that transition, up to 20 million good-paying jobs. All right, let me thank you all for being out. It's a wonderful turnout. And just to remind you, there's an election next Tuesday. Don't forget it. Thank you.